this happens sometimes. People grieve in different ways. Just listen, especially listen, you know. There's things in my life that have changed. I try not to talk about her all the time, but I find myself in conversations because she impacted my life so much. It's important not to forget that. I feel like before this, I don't remember who I was before I lost my daughter. My name is Tracy Ahumuza. I am a mother of one. Her name is Alyssa. She's an angel baby though. She'll be turning 1 year on April 2nd. I'm in health communications. I worked at an NGO for, I think, the last maybe 5 years or so. My daughter passed away in 3 days after she was born. So she would be 1 year on April 2nd, but she passed away a few days after she was born. My daughter needed an operation at birth. She was operated on. She did well. And then unfortunately, 3 days later, for no reason that we know, she passed away on Easter Monday last year. So that's pretty much it. She didn't live long, but she left a big impact on my life. Yeah. Mother's Day came shortly after she had passed away. And Mother's Day is, of course, a day to celebrate mothers. And I remember texting a friend of mine who had also lost her first child. Actually, she'd lost more than 2 babies. And I remember texting her and asking her, are we still considered mothers? And that's the first time I heard the term angel mom. She said, no, of course we are. We are special. We are angel moms. We are moms to angels. And I felt, wow, I'd never heard of that. It was very, not exciting, but validating, yeah? So I felt like, okay, so I'm still in the race. Like my daughter didn't not live, or, you know, because she came for such a short time. But she had been with me throughout the pregnancy. We had been reading to her. I had been reading to her. I'd been talking to her. I had named her. She's called Alyssa Marie Taha. But throughout the pregnancy, I just called her Alyssa. Directly after my child had just died, I remember this gentleman asked me, so how are you? Something like that. And he asked me, oh, but how's the baby? I said, oh, she passed away. Because they'd seen me pregnant. And then I say, oh no, she passed away. And then they're like, let's not even talk about it. And I said, do I look uncomfortable talking about her? Because she was here, she's my daughter. And it's like, even me, I lost a child, but we don't talk about her. I'm like, that's your decision. I believe that my daughter was a very big, important part of my life. And I think it's especially difficult for people to understand because they don't know the backstory. My mother had me at 26 years old. Her mother had her at 26 years old. So when I was 26, I thought, okay, where's the baby, right? I'm going to be a mom. And so I think that's when my motherhood journey started mentally, because I started writing letters to my daughter. I have a blog where I wrote for a long time, just, you know, telling her, actually, I think the tagline for the blog is, so I don't have to yell so much. So letters to, you know, the daughter, and then so I don't have to yell so much. So that's what happened. I wrote to her for all of those years. And then at 32, I got pregnant. And then I find out it's a girl. Because even in the letters, I remember telling her, you know, everyone asked me why I'm not writing to just a girl. But, you know, I kind of feel that you will be a girl, my first child. And so when I told, when I, I wrote those letters and everything, and then the baby turned out to be a girl, like about 20 weeks. I started calling her by name immediately, and everyone around me, at least my family members, knew her name, spoke of her all the time. We joked about Alyssa wouldn't like that, or she's pretty active right now, or she maybe doesn't like that food. I got my niece telling me, have you eaten Alyssa's food yet? So Alyssa's food was, the what's it called, that pregnancy pills that you take? Yes, Pregnacare. Yes, when I was taking Pregnacare, I explained to my 8-year-old niece. I told her that I have to take these pills because this is baby's food. This is Alyssa's food, and so every time it's time to take the medicine, she said, "Tracy, have you had Alyssa's food yet?" Yeah, so things like that. So she was a big part of that year, like 2020 into 2021 was just me and my daughter. Like everything kind of revolved around making sure she lived. So, and then she didn't. And then am I supposed to then forget that the whole year existed? I mean, if they could delete my memories, it would be helpful in a way. So yeah, in our society, if a child dies or if tragedy happens, it's the work of God. Don't challenge God, so to speak. Don't question God. He knew what he was doing when but God had people like Job, right? Who spoke directly to him and said, this and this is happening. And it's not like he talked throughout about how he had lost his child and his children, actually, his cattle, his everything. It was his life, his sadness was all out for the world to see. So he didn't even need to say anything. His stories were told. But now, the community in which we exist is that I can live through tragedy and I'll just remain in my house or whatever, and it won't come out. I don't know how I'd have managed those first 3 weeks. I'd read all the stories of other people around the world losing children, and how they coped with it. But there was no Ugandan story. And when I read Kecho's story, I felt like it was a hug. It's like, I felt like, oh, this is not something to be ashamed of. I didn't somehow fail my child. I didn't somehow fail the universe. I'm not hated by God. These things happen to us, by virtue of the fact that you're alive. You could die. So I felt that that's very important. But also, for the children who die and you don't acknowledge them, the government or the people who's in power do not acknowledge them either. And then that means that the reasons they die are not looked into so that other children may not go through similar things. The traumas their parents suffer are not considered viable because, you didn't complain. So it's probably not that big of a deal. And yes, I mean, if you don't talk about it, then maybe you're managing well. But you're not the one who's the issue here, because you might be managing good, but what happens when it's your sister who is not as strong as you? What happens when it's your brother who loses a child and he's not as strong as you are? I feel that having these stories and having the process documented on how people get through trauma is very, very important if we're to move forward, especially in an era like this where mental health has become such a huge cloud over, us. I feel that it's very important to document those stories, because then we look back and then we change certain things. Like, if this happened last time, this is probably how we should change it and do it better so it doesn't happen this time. Because God gives us memories for a reason, or we have memories for a reason, even if you're not Christian or you don't believe in that. But we have memories for a reason. You don't lose a child for no reason. Oh, it was God's will or whatever. God's will is bigger than death. It's bigger than, for everything that happens, there is a reason why it happens. And that reason may not be, yes, I know that people will flippantly tell you when you lose a child, oh, there's a reason for everything. And that is, please, if you're hearing this today, if you ever have someone who loses a child, don't tell them there's a reason for everything, because there is. They know it already. There is a reason for everything. But what is that reason? You know? And if my child, for example, came and I went through so much trauma in the pregnancy and then went through a lot of trauma trying to find breast milk that I didn't have, that another mother had to give me, because had my child been given anything else because of her operation, she would have died. So we were trying to, the only thing that she could consume is breast milk from another mother. And then having to deal with hospitals who know this information, who never thought to tell me in the 6 months we knew about her surgery. They never thought to tell me that this was important, that prepare to have a donor on board when the baby is born. Because your milk might not come immediately, or let's have the operation a little bit later so that we can have your breast milk, because breast milk is personalized treatment. I feel like if someone had gone through a similar experience and shouted on the rooftops about the injustice of not knowing, when you pay taxes, when you have a doctor on your watch, you have a gynae who you've been seeing 9 months, so do I delete that existence? I think not, because someone else for sure is going to go through the same thing. And it might not be in Uganda, it might not even be in Kampala, it might not be even anywhere in my family, but someone is going to need my story. And that's why it's so important to share and let people know that God's will can be different. God's will can be, oh, this, you went through that, learn from it so it doesn't happen again last time, because God's will surely wasn't that you might suffer the loss of your child. I don't think he's that mean, or maybe he is, but I made a gravestone for my child because she lived. And I think her existence was valid. Because of her, I'm forced to change a lot of lives. I'm forced to tell our story. Because if I don't, systems won't change. I feel that it's important to acknowledge every single child that lives. Those numbers that we don't count will not matter to the government, because this baby went through this, where and we don't know about it, or we didn't record it, means we're probably not going to look into what caused it. There are no postmortems, routine postmortems when a baby dies. They're just, it's a scandal, it's vulgar, just, cover it up. But I feel that that's where we need to do the most work. Like, if a baby survives, yeah, that's normal. A baby dies, call everybody. Let's figure out what went wrong. Why is Uganda the 28th country in the world, 28th, with the highest preterm birth rate? Why is that so? And why are we just accepting it? It's not God's will, It's easy for them to say, "Munanga, that's how things are." No. We owe it to ourselves, to our children's children, to make sure that we change the narrative. There's a tiny stone on my TV thing, and a little love heart thing that a friend gave me. Her names are there. And how am I remembering her? I have things like that are visible reminders of her life. But I also really appreciate when people speak about Alyssa, when they say her name. How am I remembering her? I started a foundation in her honor. The Alyssa Marie Foundation is specifically for breastfeeding and breast milk awareness and the Atta breast milk community, because Atta is her name and my name, the initials. So I say her name a lot. That's, I feel, how I'm remembering her. I haven't been able to go and see her grave, or her garden, like I like to call it, in a while. I haven't been to her garden in a while, but I used to go a lot in the beginning. I'd plant flowers and put, those white nice stones, and I'd go and speak with her or pray. And that's what I did in that time. But it's not been something I've been able to do in the last maybe 5 months. And she's very near. She's here in Kololo. And I'll pass by that place sometimes, and I'll say, I'm sorry, girl, I can't be in the graveyard. But I know that she's next to two other little girls. And sometimes those 2 little girls get visited. And I know that when they get visited, she's also prayed for. And a friend of mine goes to see his dad's grave. He's Muslim. It's a Muslim graveyard. And there's honor in praying for the dead for some people. So he goes to see his dad, and he sees my daughter as well. And we like to joke that she's probably disturbing him. So there's things in my life that have changed. I try not to talk about her all the time, but I find myself in conversations because she impacted my life so much. And I feel like it's important not to forget that. So I talk about her. I have little mementos like that. No one has entered the house and asked who Alyssa Marie is or who Alyssa was. It's pretty obvious because I talk about her a lot. But yeah, everything. I journal. I write. I talk to her sometimes, But I do tell her, I loved you. I love you, and I miss you. And hey, man, you came and changed things. You really messed up everything I wanted to do. You changed that. Yeah, so I'll have candid conversations with her. But also I just like to talk about her a lot. And I love it when people acknowledge that she existed. I want to celebrate the fact that I was able to have my child when I did. I had a child. I have a child. I can't dismiss that, because what if all these future things never happen? Yeah, so